Namaste everybody. Welcome to this session. We will start with an invocation. Jaya Jaya Swami, Jaya Jaya, Jaya Jaya Swami, Jaya Jaya, Jaya Jaya Swami, Jaya Jaya, Jaya Jaya Dita Vairi, Varga Prachanda, Jaya Jaya Dita Vairi, Varga Prachanda, Jaya Jaya Gajamukha, Jaya Vakratunda, Jaya Jaya Dita Vairi, Varga Prachanda, Jaya Jaya Gajamukha, Jaya Vakratunda, Jaya Jaya Swami, Jaya Jaya, Jaya Jaya Swami, Jaya Jaya. Mushakavahana Munigana Dosharagita Dalita Surabhunda Deshabhushana Saiva Varidhi Chandra Deshabhushana Saiva Varidhi Chandra Poshita Paridana Punyaikakanda Jaya Jaya Swami Jaya Jaya.
Thank you so much.
Namaskar. Can you hear me? Yeah? Everyone can hear me well?
Little closer to me.
You what?
Yes.
Namaskar. People in the back, can you hear me? Okay. So while they adjust this, let me take the time to thank all of you for coming from different distances. Thank you. Huh? Please, please. You want this? Yeah, please. This is
Swagatam to all. We'll begin with a small invocation. Om Shri Guru Namaha. Om Shri Yoga Vidya Ganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Skanda Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Ashtadipindapataye Anaadi Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Swami Namaha. Om Shri Lopamudra Devi Sameta Kasishwaraya Namaha. Om Shri Mahakriya Babaji Jnanaswarupaya Namaha. Om Shri Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya Namaha. Today, amidst us, we are very, very happy to welcome Shri Nilesh Nilkanth. He is a distinguished researcher, author, and speaker. We are very, very honored to host him as part of the Anaadi Pournami lecture series. Shri Nilesh has an MBA and an MS in chemical engineering, MS in chemical engineering from University of Alberta. And over time, Shri Nilesh has seamlessly transitioned from being a successful corporate career, from having a successful corporate career to becoming an expert in Bharat's antiquity. This is owing to his deep passion for Indian history, chronology, and great faculties of scientific inquiry. His groundbreaking work, particularly through his two books, When Did the Mahabharata What Happened? The Mystery of Arundhati. And the second book, The Historic Rama, and later the third book, The Bhishma Nirvana, and numerous other publications that he has had, have all, shown his acumen to do applied scientific inquiry using astronomical methods, using various other techniques to triangulate. Yesterday, G was addressing how with Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama to cross-triangulate and validate various ancient Indian timelines. He's a much sought-after speaker at the Gaya and TEDx and various other podcasts. G, here we have an audience who are very, very fresh to you and new to you. So this is, though G is very, very famous, so I'm sure most of you here are going to listen to him the first time and become inspired in your lives to also understand how G's work is very significant in interpreting Bharat's glorious past. For school and college students, his insights offer a unique opportunity to enhance your critical thinking, to appreciate our rich heritage, and also explore the relevance of ancient knowledge in today's time. So much ado, I welcome Author Shri's father, Shri C.S. Venkata Ji, our mentor here, to honor the guests.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். I don't want to stand in between you and Mr. Nilesh both. Only a small introduction about the topic here. I was working in a nationalized bank's training college as a faculty for a very long time, worked in 8 different states. Whenever in training college, some anecdote or incident has to be quoted, I used to quote examples from Ramayana and Mahabharata. Because we have answers for every question in Ramayana and Mahabharata. As Cecil B. DeMille told, oh, you are producing a picture always on Bible, he told, I don't want to waste 2000 years introduction to that subject. Similarly, this was like that. But very unfortunate thing is, when I was posted in Tamil Nadu training college, when I quote examples from Mahabharata and Ramayana, many of the people could not follow. I don't know about you. I'm not accusing anybody or making any allegation, but many of the people could not follow. But while I was in Calcutta, when I quote example of Mahabharata incident, even about Satyagi, Devabrata, they are all having, some children are having name like Devabrata and Satyagi. Satyagi we have never heard of in Tamil Nadu, but Satyagis are there in West Bengal. Many people could not follow this. And one more thing is, one calculated malign attempt is also being made when Ayodhya judgment came. It is given on the basis of faith. It is not given on the basis of faith as quoted by many people. It is given on the basis of facts, because facts born out of records only, the judgment has been given to show. If you calculate, the same 21 days will be shown by the Google map between Ayodhya and Sri Lanka to reach, which the time quoted by even Valmiki. The same way in Silappadigaram, it was confirmed that it was a real history and not some story. One man walked from Pumbuhar up to that Kannagi statue in Kerala and calculated, went through all the places. So here we have an opportunity to get a first-hand information from Shri O to know more about these subjects. I had the opportunity of even visiting Dwaraka and see what is brought up from the sea, some old monuments. Thank you all. Over to Shri.
I can sit and you can adjust.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, how's this? Good? Okay, thank you for your patience to go through these modern technologies. Okay. So what we'll talk about is insights from the Mahabharata and other Hindu texts. If there is a lecture, it needs a title. Okay, so a title like this. But we will talk very broadly about some of the things I want to talk, but also I hope I can leave some time for question answers so we can have some discussion. When we get to questions, please ensure that you are asking just a question. You don't need to give a long elaboration, the background. Okay. If required, I will ask you, but just ask a question. And a simple way, the question begins with what, where, why, how, that's how the question begins. So let's begin. You have some introduction of mine. This is just a quick summary. Can everyone see it? Yeah, more or less you can see, and it's not much to read on the slide, just as a reference for everyone to focus on the point. What you see here is like a quick summary of 30 years of my research. The axis, the horizontal line that you see is the x-axis of time. Now, if you go to Ujjain, there is a Jyotirlinga called Mahakal. Everyone knows that? Mahakal, which means what? Infinity to infinity, minus infinity to plus infinity. And then what we are going to talk is not minus infinity to plus infinity, but we are going to, you cannot see in the back. You are okay? Yeah. We are going to talk of a Khandakal, meaning somewhere, because we cannot talk infinite time, you will get hungry eventually. So sometimes, somewhere we have to start and somewhere we have to stop. That doesn't mean the itihas has stopped there. But maybe we are going to stop because we have a limited time, or we are going to stop because we have a limited evidence. Okay, so somewhere we have to stop. I'll tell you where we stop. But still we are going to go a long distance. So my work began with the Mahabharata. Everyone is familiar with Mahabharata? Okay. So I collected somebody's phone here. Is it? Started reading Mahabharata, and I'll tell you a story briefly. But I collected all the astronomy evidence from Mahabharata, different descriptions. They amount to about 300. And then in a scientific fashion, I brought them all together. Just to give an example, how many of you play with the newspaper crossword puzzle? How many of you do that? Crossword puzzle? Yeah. Also, the children and even the grown-ups, we play with the jigsaw puzzle, right? Like the entire India and different states of India. Just imagine something like this, a physical picture, but also based on the clues that the words give us, like trying to put it together, only doing this to astronomy evidence of Mahabharata. Okay. So putting it together, you get only one date. That is that 5561 BCE. BC stands for before Common Era. And we are going to talk a little bit more about it. Same thing I did for Ramayana. So Valmiki Ramayana. Now I know in Tamil Nadu, everyone is familiar with Kamba Ramayana. Okay. So if you go to north, like say UP, you will see Tulsi Ramayana everywhere. If you go to Maharashtra, where I come from, we have a Bhavartha Ramayana by Santa Eknath. Now these are different Ramayanas. They are written from a different perspective, mostly from a bhakti perspective. Okay. So we can still learn a lot. Please continue. Yeah, we can still learn a lot, but we have to remember, if we want to look at this as a history or a itihas, we are going to focus only on one, which is Valmiki Ramayana, and no other. Everyone with me? So only Valmiki Ramayana. So some of the things I'm going to tell you, you may find actually very shocking and surprising. Especially if you have read Kamba Ramayana. You are going to say, that's not what I read in Kamba Ramayana. But that is because it's not there in the Valmiki Ramayana. Now, all the different people who wrote on the Ramayana, whether it is a Kamba Ramayana, whether it is Tulsi Ramayana, Bhavartha Ramayana, and every state almost has some Ramayana. All of those people pay their respects to Valmiki. They say, because of Valmiki, we come to know of Bhagwan Ram. Okay, and they're doing it. So, same thing in Valmiki Ramayana, there are close to 600 astronomy descriptions. Again, imagine solving a jigsaw puzzle, crossword puzzle. I brought it together, and the date comes is only 1 year, 12,209 BCE. That is the year when Ram Ravan Yuddha occurred. Okay, they fought. That is the year. Now, how many of you know that both Ramayana, the text of Ramayana, and text of Mahabharata, both of them have descriptions of Vedas? Both of them describe all 4 Vedas. There is a description. For example, when Bhagwan Ram is taught, like, there is a description. He was a Vedavat. He became Veda Parangat. He became expert in the Vedas. So there is a Veda that already existed at the Ramayana time, Mahabharata time. So what can we tell about the timing of Veda? We may not know the exact timing, but we can say they definitely were there older than the Ramayana times and Mahabharata times. Now, when I started studying Vedas, do you know something? If you do some good work, you may get a pat on the back, but just for a minute. And then they say, get busy again. So they say, okay, in English, they say, no good work goes unpunished. Have you heard that? Okay, so they say, now, Nilesh, why don't you do the Rigveda? So when I did Mahabharata, they say, why don't you do the Mahabharata? So Rigveda. So I started looking at the astronomy descriptions in Rigveda. And there are many. However, I will talk a little bit about this. But at least at that time, going back at least 10 years, I couldn't find any astronomy description that were useful to me to exactly date Rigveda. But then I looked at the river Saraswati evidence. How many of you have heard river Saraswati? The goddess Saraswati, but also river Saraswati, right? How many of you have visited river Saraswati? You? Where did you visit? Okay, so now what happens? The main Saraswati is simply not there. It has disappeared because of the geological phenomenon. But do you know what Rigveda says? Rigveda says, Nadi Tame, Ambi Tame, Devi Tame, Saraswati, the grandest of the grand river. A river bigger than Kaveri and Godavari and Ganga and Yamuna and Sindhu, which that river is now no longer there. But all the studies in geology, geophysics, geochemistry, hydrology now tell us that there was a river, big river like this. How many of you have visited Taj Mahal? Actually, a good number. So when you go to visit Taj Mahal, next to that there is a river Yamuna, and it feels big river. But the big river that you feel big river, the width of that river Yamuna there next to Taj Mahal is about 1.5 to 2 miles or 2 kilometers. It is only that much wide. What our research tells us that the river Saraswati in some places when it existed, it was as wide as, listen to this, 26 kilometers. And this is not when it meets the ocean. Because if you go to Kaveri, you can see the Kaveri also gets bigger and bigger, right? Godavari gets bigger and bigger. But this is right in the middle of Haryana. It no longer exists, but river is as wide as 26. So if you take those descriptions and try to find out when river Saraswati existed, we can safely say that some portions of Rigveda are definitely older than 21,000. Okay, so I'm going somewhere with this. So 5,561 years ago, which means what? It's 61 BC, which means how many years ago? You have to take 5561 plus add 2024. So about 7,000 years ago. So simple way to remember the 30 years of my work is Mahabharata more than 7,000 years ago, Ramayana more than 14,000 years ago, and Rigveda more than 21,000 years ago. Easy? If you know the multiplication of 7,000, you can remember that very easily. Okay. Now, just to show you how I came up with this 5561 BC, just as an example. Now, something that took me 15 plus years, I'm going to tell you in less than 5 minutes. Okay, that portion. So take with some leap of faith, leap of Shraddha. This is how Mahabharata looks like. the Gita Press edition, very huge. How many of you have heard of Greek epics called Iliad and Odyssey? Right? Some very few, but yes. So I don't need to give that comparison. The reason I mentioned is most of my lectures are in America and they don't necessarily know Mahabharata and Ramayana. So I have to start with what they know, which is Greek epics. They call Iliad and Odyssey. Mahabharata is the longest epic of humanity, not just India. If you take Iliad and Odyssey, combine it and multiply by 8 times, that is how big Mahabharata is. Okay, 18 volumes there. This may be surprising to many. During the Mahabharata war, people came from all over India to fight. But this is not the India that we know today. If you go back now, how many thousand years you have to go back for Mahabharata? 7,000. Okay, you are paying attention. This is a good crowd. Okay. So more than 7,000 years ago, the India that we call the Bharatvarsha or whatever the name you wanted to give, Jambudvip, many other names. Okay. That was at least the warriors who came to fight in the Mahabharata war came from that area. Look how far back west, as far west as Syria. So from India, you will go to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, and Turkey and Syria. People came from that area. They were our people. Our people had gone there. I don't know if you know, but many Tamil people had gone into Iraq. Like when you look at the Sumerian civilization and you actually see the symbols in the language also, you see the symbols that match. Okay. Even the calendars, very sophisticated calendars in Sumeria and Babylonia are basically Indian calendars, Indian lunisolar calendars. So those people were coming from there. How many of you have heard the name King Bhagadatta in Mahabharata? Few, not many, few. Bhagadatta came from somewhere in Iraq to fight in the Mahabharata war. Okay, he's a very much an Indian king, but that's how big the land was. How many of you have heard the name Balik? And as Shri said, like many people don't know the name like the Satyaki, for example. So you may not know this name, but Balik was a very important king who came and fought in the war. Now, Balik came from Syria. Today, you can go to Syria and there is a very active river called Balik. Exactly the name like this. Okay. And if you go in the east, there were people from what we call now Burma, Myanmar, from Indonesia, from Laos, from Cambodia, and that area. And maybe some people from Africa, we don't know that, maybe Ghatotkaч, okay, somebody like this. So just remember this, huh? Remember this for next 20 minutes, like the area that people came from. Our current India, east of India up to Indonesia, and west of India, the Middle East countries. Yeah, so remember those 3 areas. We'll talk about some evidence. So how I began with this is like this. If we can find something in Mahabharata that people think it is impossible based on today's modern science, modern astronomy, modern geography, geology, any field, they think this is impossible. But it is written in Mahabharata. And if we can research on it and actually we can show that it is possible, then that is like a very good type of evidence because no one was thinking this can be true. And now we know it is true. That kind of evidence is very useful. So there is this description. This is now astronomy description. Just day before the Mahabharata war, Vyasadeva, who is the author of Mahabharata, is telling the blind king Dhritarashtra. Have you heard Dhritarashtra? The blind king? He says he's a father of Duryodhana. He says, please, I request you, see if you want to stop the war. See if you can stop the war. It is going to be a huge war. 18 Aukshohini warriors, male warriors are going to fight. Do you know what 18 Aukshohini comes out to? About 40 lakhs. About 40 lakhs men enthusiastic to fight. Okay. So please, if you can stop. And in describing this, he is giving many different descriptions. He also giving many astronomy descriptions. And we'll look at some of them. But the one very important one, this is where my journey began in 1994. Many of you were not born. Okay, in 1994. So what Vyasadeva is telling Dhritarashtra, he says, my dear king, the famous Arundhati in the sky. Everyone, those who are married, they know after the wedding, you might have forgotten, but the Arundhati Vasishta Nyaya, you have to go and look at the sky and show the Arundhati. Everyone remembers? Look at the Arundhati and Vasishta. Those Arundhati and Vasishta, not someone on the ground with the name Arundhati or Vasishta. So Vyasa is saying that star Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishta. It's an astronomy term. If you look at the north direction at the pole star, all the stars near that area, they come in the northeast, they go anti-clockwise and set on the northwest. So when the Saptarshi, everyone knows Saptarshi? Okay. When the Saptarshis come, the Vasishta is ahead, Arundhati is behind. That is the case today. If you go back 1,000 years, that is the scenario. If you go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years, 5,000 years, 6,000 years, it is the same thing. Vasishta is ahead, Arundhati is behind. But Vyasa is saying at the time of Mahabharata war, my dear king, at that time he's saying, Ya Chaisha Visuta Rajas, Trailoke Sadhu Sammata, the famous Arundhati in the three worlds. Arundhati, Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. That Arundhati has placed her husband behind. In the modern day, we can see that scenario in the malls. When couples go for shopping, Arundhati is ahead, Vasishta is behind. Vasishta doesn't want to go, but he has no choice. Something like that. Okay, just imagine that. Arundhati is walking ahead, Vasishta is behind. So when I looked at that, I said, why would Vyasa write something that is not possible in astronomy? This was 1994. I was ready to complete my master's in chemical engineering. I had 15 days to defend my thesis and I had nothing to do. So that's when I came across this evidence from the Mahabharata. And I said, I'm an engineer. How many of you are engineers? Okay, few. So I said, engineers can do anything. That's what I thought then. So I said, 15 days, I will solve the problem. I did solve the problem, but not in 15 days. It took me 15 years. Yesterday, I was talking to students. I told them that from 1994 to 2009, just imagine this. I'm only playing with this one shlok from Mahabharata. Ya Chaisha Visuta Rajastra Loke Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. I tried in many different ways. I will fast forward. Finally, in 2009, I solved the mystery. How many of you have been to the magic show, like a magician, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat or something like this? So what is the magic? The magician knows what he is doing. If we don't know, we are surprised and we feel, wow, how did he do it? Or how did she do it, right? It is something like this. Once I figured it out, people thought it's impossible. But once I showed it, actually it gave something more. In the past, actually, there is a time period when if we were there in the Mahabharata times, and we would be watching, even right from here, from Pournami, we are looking at the sky and look at the Vasishta and Arundhati. Do you know what we would have seen? We would have seen Arundhati ahead and Vasishta behind. That's what we would have seen between this time period. So everyone sees the time period? Any time after 11,000 BC, any time before 4,500 BC, we would have seen Arundhati walk ahead of Vasishta. My question to you, based on this, and Vyasa is saying this at the time of Mahabharata, what can you say about the timing of Mahabharata? It has to be between these two dates, if that statement is true. Okay, but is this the only statement? Of course, I gave you the answer, 5561. Now, when I did this in 2009, 10 years after me, somebody had a doubt. He said, I want to check for myself. This is a good kind of doubt. I want to check for myself if is Nilesh bluffing or is he telling the truth? So in about 2019, Siddhartha Chabra is based in the USA again, Michigan. He looked at the recent data, the latest astronomy data from Hubble telescopes, Jet Propulsion Lab, NASA, and he analyzed the same shlok. And he said, actually, what I'm saying is correct, but my dates are not correct, at least based on the new data he has. And the interval has shrunk for the date of Mahabharata. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good thing or a bad thing? Good thing, because now I have to search for the year of Mahabharata war in a very short time. Okay, I'm going to fast forward. How many of you have heard the name Bhishma? Bhishma Pitama, everyone? So you know about Bhishma something, which is on the 10th day of the war, there was a Mahabharata war lasted for 18 days. On the 10th day of the war, Bhishma fell down in the battle. But he did not die. And he had a siddhi, we will not talk much about it. He could decide when he wants to go. And he looked at the position of the sun and he said, this is a Dakshinayan going on. Like currently, what is the time right now? He said, I want to wait until Uttarayan. Okay, which is what? In the modern calendar, 21st of December. He wants to wait equivalent to that, and then only he wants to leave his body. So he waited on this. There is so much evidence in the Mahabharata text. If you take that evidence, like how long he's waiting, the day of Uttarayan, 21st days, I'm just making it simplified, not complicating with astronomy background. This is what we get. This is all evidence from Mahabharata. And astronomy is so powerful, so precise, so accurate. Look at the numbers. It will give you numbers like that. See, Bhishma Nirvan, based on astronomy evidence in Mahabharata, is not possible any time before 6722 BCE. It is not possible any times after 5125 BCE. Okay, it can be that precise. So there is that now it gives us a middle time, about 1600 years between the two dates I just said, where we have to look for year of Mahabharata war. So what's happening? We started here, and with additional evidence, we are making the interval smaller and smaller. Everyone follows what I'm saying? So in between, we have to find that year of Mahabharata war. Of course, I gave you the answer, right? Now let's see how we found that out. Again, at a very high level. I have drawn a circle and I have written numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 28. Can somebody tell me what they are? They are nakshatras. So we are standing on the earth and we are looking at the nakshatra, the path of the sun. It's called the ecliptic. And just like when we are going on the highway, these days we follow GPS. But before, so we don't look at the highway post. But before, people used to look at it. How far is Pournami? How far is Coimbatore? And things like that. Okay. So just like that, these are the stations. You can think of this nakshatra as the station. We use them to decide the location of the sun, location of the moon, but also location of the planets. How many of you know astrology? Like trying to look at the nakshatra and the stars. Shani Sadesati, everyone knows? The 7.5 bad years of Saturn. No? You have heard about it, right? Something like that. So we are deciding based on that. If it's in your Rashi, the Saturn is there, it's going to be there for 7.5 years. And we call that Shani Sadesati. That's astrology, of course. Here I'm talking astronomy, just the physical position. So those are 27 nakshatra. And Mahabharata has about 50 different descriptions related to these different planets. Everyone knows the planets? So sun and a moon. Okay. Then Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Of course, we have a Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, but we'll ignore them for now just because of a time. But these 5 planets and sun and moon, they are visible to the eye. We can just see them. And that's what Mahabharata describes. Just to give you an example of a Saturn. Let's see if you can do this, okay? So for Saturn and Jupiter, it says something like this. Just to give you an idea, how does the evidence in Mahabharata looks like? It says, and any Sanskrit experts beside our teachers and all? Any other people? How many of you know Sanskrit? Little bit. Some of you know a lot, right? Yeah. How many of you know good Sanskrit? Raise your hands. A decent Sanskrit. Decent. Okay. So we will take help from these people here. Okay. Samvatsara sthainancha graho prajwalito ubhav vishakhayo samipasto bruhaspati shanaischara. Sanskrit is not difficult. Bruhaspati Shanaischara. Everyone knows what they are? Jupiter and Saturn. Vishakhayo samipasto. In the vicinity of nakshatra Vishakha. Okay. What else? Samvatsara sthainancha. They have become settled, sthira, steady for up to a year. Samvatsara sthainancha. Graho prajwalito ubho. Both of them are shining brightly. How many of you know the retrograde motions of planets? Okay, so I'll go fast through it. So I will not tire you with astronomy. what happens is sometimes the planet is just apparent motion. It comes like every time it's going like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 28. But occasionally, all the planets they actually come and as if seen from the Earth, they don't go further, but they slow down, they go backwards and then they go forward. Okay, that's called retrograde motion or a Vakri motion, something like that. Huh. So Vakram, everyone knows the Vakram motion. Yeah. So that's what they are doing. And anytime the outer planets, especially outer planets, meaning Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, when they go Vakram, they become very bright. Mars become extremely bright. So I'll give you example of Mars. So what does it tell? At the time of Mahabharata war, Jupiter and Saturn were somewhere near Nakshatra Vishaka. That's what we have to take it out. But that is not the only description of Saturn. There is another description of Saturn. For example, it says, Bhagam Nakshatra Akramya Surya Putrena Pidate. Surya Putra is a Shani. We know that. So that Saturn has come near Nakshatra Bhaga. Okay, Bhagam Nakshatra Akramya Surya Putrena Pidate, and is afflicting that Nakshatra Bhaga. Now, from the Nakshatra, we should know Bhaga Nakshatra is a Bhaga Devata of that Nakshatra, which is Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni. So, which means Saturn is near Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni. Another slok said it is near Vishaka. So, this is the jigsaw puzzle. This is the jigsaw puzzle. This is the crossword puzzle I'm saying. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it has to be do something near Vishaka with Jupiter, but it must be also at Uttara Falguni. Then there is another description. Prajapatyam Nakshatram Graha Tikshna Mahadyuti Shaneshchara Pidayati Pidayan Pranikodikam. That same Saturn is also giving affliction to Nakshatra Rohini. Any Rohini in the crowd today? Your daughter? Or you are Nakshatra, you are saying. You are Nakshatra. No. People with a Rohini name. Anyone with a name Swati in the crowd? No? We have a cow. We'll talk about the cow today. Okay? Afterwards. Okay? So just to give you an idea, if you combine like this 50 times, I'll not bore you by telling all the shloka. Okay? If you combine this, the only year that you get is 5561 BCE. Because just like a plugging the word, only one word fits there. Other word will not fit. Okay, like that. So that's how we got 5561 BCE. Now this one I call it doubt clearing machine, DCM. In America, people like those names like that. They say, okay, I remember DCM. Do you know DCM? Doubt clearing machine. This is the method of science. This is the method of science in the West, and this is the method of science in the East. Okay, so if you want to focus on the English one, I'm going to give you the method given by Professor Sir Karl Popper. Anyone has heard the name before? The best philosopher of science as far as the Western science is concerned. Do you know how he describes it? I mean, I consider him my guru. Okay, Sir Karl Popper. He says the logic of scientific method or the scientific method, it's a triangulation. Everyone sees the triangle? It's a triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing. Evidence is explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, in the context of background knowledge. Okay. And why do you do science? Because you have nothing else to do. That could be one reason. Or you want to solve a problem. Richard Feynman, if you have heard the name, the famous scientist, he used to say, let's do some physics. We have a physics professors in the crowd today too. He used to say, let's do some physics. That's how he used to say, let's do some science. There is some problem that we have not solved yet. To solve that problem, we want to do this. So we need a problem. We need a problem. If you want to do science, we need a problem that is not been solved. Then to solve that problem, we propose a theory. Then once we propose a theory, we look for the evidence based on the theory. Then we want to objectively test it. We want to test all the evidence and we want to draw the conclusion. If you are successful, you get a scientific and logical solution. You clap, you pat on your back, and you get busy again to solve the next problem. So this is the formula. I was going to ask the formula to our students. I had a time with them yesterday. So I said, when you solve one problem, it's not the end of it. Actually, there are many more problems that come up. And what is that cycle? Who wants to say? Who wants to say? Yeah. Okay. Somebody. Yeah. Loudly. P1, TT, EE, P2. Okay. This is known in science as tetradic schema of the scientific method. Therefore, I said you get busy again. So you had a first problem. For example, when did the Mahabharata war happen? To solve that, you proposed a theory. What was my theory? I looked at all astronomy evidence. So my theory was all the astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata text are astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata time. Everyone follows? That is a simple theory. So therefore, everything that is there in the Mahabharata, I should be able to show that it matches for the date that I'm claiming as the year of Mahabharata war, like 5561. Okay. Now, so I started with the P1. My theory I just told you. So actually, Arundhati Vasishta, I spent 15 years, and finally I said, yeah, there is a time period when Arundhati could be seen walking ahead of Vasishta, as said by Vyasa. So I eliminated the error. Are you with me? Vyasa says Arundhati must be ahead. And I said, yeah, if you go before 45 BCE, Arundhati will be ahead. So I matched that. So I eliminated the error. I did that for 300 observation. I get the answer 5561 BCE. Am I done? No. Thank you. So yeah, clap, pat on the back, and now get busy again. So now we come up with many questions. Immediately people raise the hand. Yeah, that's true. But where is the evidence? Where is the evidence? Have you found the chariot? What about the Astra? What about this? How did Arjuna become Brannala for 1 year? You know, I mean, all kinds of questions. We don't know the answers to all because our science is also limited. Our technology is limited. But even with that, we can do something. I'm going to show you two examples. Two examples for Mahabharata. Afterwards, in a question answer, we get time for Ramayana, we can do that. But I also want to show you how deep is the antiquity of our Indian civilization, Sanatan civilization. But before that, so something else happened. So astronomy, great. Now we know the year of Mahabharata war. What else happened around the time of Mahabharata war that you remember? Huh? Dwarka. What happened to Dwarka? It was gone. Everyone knows Bhagwan Krishna's Dwarka, it was destroyed by gushing sea waters, rising sea waters. Anything else? What else? Remember, 40 lakhs men died in 18 days. And 40 lakhs men, you know, the number of men that died in the First World War or Second World War are actually nothing in comparison to what happened in the Mahabharata war. Especially if you realize 7,500 years ago, the net population of the earth was much smaller. We don't know the exact number, but we have the estimates. Afterwards, you can go to the Google. Everyone has a smartphone, most of them, right? The visitors have a smartphone. You can go to Google and say, what was the population of the earth in 6th millennium BCE? And they will give you some numbers, okay? And you can compare that. So 40 lakhs people or 4 million people are also gone. And we will see the effect of that. Suddenly, those many men just disappeared in 18 days. We'll see the effect of that from the scientific evidence. But let's start with the Dwarka. So Krishna's Dwarka was gone, destroyed by flooding sea waters 36 years after the Mahabharata war. That's what Mahabharata text tells us. This is just a linear description. Now we are going to look at the evidence. So if the Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BCE and Krishna's Dwarka was destroyed 36 years after, what year is that? 5561 BCE, and what you have to do? Because it's a before common era, actually you have to subtract the number, although we are going ahead in time. So 5561 minus 36, it gives you 5525 BCE. Everyone follows? So that is the predicted year for the flooding and destruction of Krishna's Dwarka. Now we are asking the question, is there any evidence? And the Krishna's Dwarka is flooded and destroyed on the ground. There is no point you staring at the sky looking for any evidence. It's not going to be there. It's going to be on the ground. This is the first evidence. And because of time, I'm not going to go through all of it. This is the study that was done about 26 years ago, 1998. And it's not done by Indians, by the way. By the way, if you're taking notes, that's great. But we can find a way to get the presentation, like, email or, so we will get the presentation to you, those who want it, or even everyone, even if you don't want it. You can delete, afterwards. So that you don't have to spend time on that, but you can take notes if you want. So this is a paper, the x-axis, the graph that you see there, the x-axis is the time. Now I know you cannot read it, so I will tell you. You start from that side, that is hours today. You come backwards, going in the past is like this. So there 2000, which is now, then 1000 and 0. And then we are going minus 1000, minus 2000, minus 4000. Everyone follows? So this 5525 is a minus 5525. Okay, minus 9. So the red line I have drawn vertical is drawn by me. The y-axis is the sea level rise. And do you see the line? It's kind of going like this. And where I have drawn the red line, you see suddenly the sea level rise is going up. Everyone sees that? Where I have drawn the red line. Okay. Do you know how much? Because you cannot read it, I will read it for you. 15 meters right in the middle of 6 millennium BC. That is 5525 BC. Just remember that for 20 minutes. I'm going to show you evidence from Kumpuhar. It's exactly same evidence. This is west coast of India. I'm also going to show you evidence from east coast of India. But for now, suddenly 15 meters. Do you know how much is that? 50 feet. And the next 300, 400 years, it went additional 8 meters, total of 23 meters. And this is not a tsunami. What happens in tsunami? Water goes up, but it comes back. This is not coming back. Okay, it went. It is how much? 18? 20 feet. Okay, so this will give you an idea. And this is an average, by the way. So this is 20. Go like a 23 meters is 60. So go 3 times this. 3 times the height of this hall. That is the net increase on the west coast or in the Arabian Sea or a Sindhu Sagar. Okay, and this is the average height. Depending on your land, specific land, you will be affected more or less. How many of you have heard? So this is what happened, and that's what destroyed Krishna's Dwarka. Now let me ask you, how many of you have heard the places in Gujarat called Dholavira and Lothal? Okay, so they were ports. They were ports from, if you can do this in the Google afterwards, okay? And if you ask those people, archaeologists, my mouse is not there, that's fine. No, that's okay. You see that curve has gone up and stayed there. And then after 2000 BC, it's coming down and it's doing like this, okay? So that the sea level was higher than what it is today. After Krishna's Dwarka was destroyed, it was higher by average 3 meters. Okay, that's like about 10 feet higher everywhere. And so what happened is the Dholavira and Lothal, they were ports. They were very active ports for the next 2000, 3000 years. Archaeologists know that, but archaeologists don't know why they were ports. The answer is in this graph. Because the sea level had gone further up than what it is today, 3 meters higher on an average, and it stayed there for the next 2000 years, and then the water came down. Everyone understands? Okay. Now, this is not the only evidence. Because of time, I'm not going to do it. How many of you, not the students here, but those our guests today, the visitors, how many of you watch YouTube? YouTube, videos on the YouTube? Okay. Just very few addicts. No, not many. How many of you have a sleeping problem? The ladies typically have sleeping problem, very light sleep. Anyone has sleeping problems, insomnia? Yeah, I have a solution for you and no side effects. Just at the sleeping time, all you have to do is take your smartphone, go to YouTube. Can you remember my name? Nilesh Oak. Nileshoak. You just type Nilesh Oak in the YouTube. You are going to get thousands of videos. Watch any video. Okay. Either if you found it interesting, you're going to get some additional knowledge. But if that doesn't happen, no worries. You're going to get a good night's sleep. Okay. As you keep on watching, you're going to fall asleep. Yeah. So you can definitely do that. There are 20 videos describing this evidence from around the world. So it was a global phenomenon, not just happening in the Arabian Sea. Okay. Look at where the dots are. They are there in the South America. They are there in the North America. They are there in the Europe, Africa. like South Africa, Australia, and you can watch all of those videos. Like each dot is like another 45-minute video. So if you will not get bored, one night, one video, good night sleep. Next day, another video, good night sleep. That's how it will work, okay? Everywhere. I'll show, if I get time, I'll show some other videos. Let's look at the genetics. 40 lakhs people are gone, 40 lakhs men in 18 days. It's a very short time. So what do you think happened? There is an imbalance between men and women. Usually it's like a 50-50 kind of thing, but now there is an imbalance. And that imbalance, the question is, there is not always a guarantee we will have a data, we will have evidence, but at least it's worth asking the question, is there a evidence that suddenly 40 lakhs men disappearing in 18 days, did it have any effect that we can see in the genetics or physical anthropology? And the answer is yes. So now my research, I don't know them. These are all genetic researchers. This is a paper written in 2015, like 5 years after my research, by Monica Carmin. And there are 90 genetic researchers. I will explain what the graph is. X-axis is time. Remember, we are talking about the time, okay? So 150,000 years all the way to our time. Everyone sees that? 150,000 is here. Our time is there. And the Y-axis, do you know what we have? How many of you, any genetic scientist or molecular biologist or biology major? Anyone in the crowd? No? Okay, so I can tell anything. You have to listen, huh? Okay. But you know little bit about chromosomes. Chromosomes, everyone has heard, X and Y chromosomes. Okay. So, for example, there is a X chromosomes is also called matrilineal, like a mother's chromosomes. And Y chromosomes is called a father chromosomes. I'm simplifying, okay? For example, right now, somebody enters there, okay? For example, Mr. and Mrs. Gomatam, we'll just give a name, they just enter. And, they just came late for this lecture. What will we say? Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Gomatam came late today. But if there is a genetic scientist, he doesn't look at them and say Mr. and Mrs. Gomatam. Do you know what he says? Or he or she says? They say 3 X's and 1 Y entered the hall. 3 X's and 1 Y. Everyone follows? Like if it's a female, 2 X's. If it's a male, X and a Y. So when a couple comes in, we have 3 X's, 1 Y. That is the common thing. When nothing exciting is happening, we have 3 X's, 1 Y. I want to show you that noise here. I have written a line, nothing exciting is happening. There are about 3:1 ratio. So that is that Y-axis. The Y-axis is a ratio showing the variety of the X chromosomes divided by the variety of Y chromosomes. The variation, the variety, vividhata of a Y chromosomes and X chromosomes. Everyone follows? The variation in the X chromosomes, the variety, don't say variation, variety X chromosomes divided by variety Y chromosomes. Variety in the female chromosomes, variety in the male chromosomes. Everyone follows? This is also known as a bottleneck. Okay. So what happens? When the ratio goes up, what does that mean? The X chromosomes variety is much and the Y chromosomes variety has come down, has shrunk. Therefore, a bottleneck. You know the neck of a bottle, right? That's what we're saying. Now, what is it telling us? For most part, 150,000 years, it is 3:1. Everyone follows? The ratio is 3 if you look at the Y-axis. We know why. 3 X's came and 1 Y came, like that. But something happened. Look at this last peak here, that big peak. What is the number on the Y-axis? 16 or 17. So something happened in the world. Suddenly something happened. Suddenly the variation in the male chromosomes went down. It went down so much that the Y-axis is 16:1. Everyone follows? Or how many of you are electronics engineer? I know there is at least one electronics engineer, young student. Anyone else? Electronics, electrical? Yeah, very good. Signal to noise ratio. So raise your hand, please. Again, both of you. Raise your hand. Look at them, okay? So if you have any questions afterwards about signal to noise, you ask them. Huh? So if you do signal to noise ratio, it's a 16 divided by 3 is about 5:1. Everyone follows? Just remember that. Now we have to ask two more questions. If you heard of an earthquake, you ask three questions. If you heard about an earthquake in the newspaper or in the news, somewhere big earthquake happened, you say, how big was the earthquake? Richter scale. You say, where did it happen? And you say, when did it happen? So now we are talking of this genetic earthquake. The Mahabharata war was a genetic earthquake. It wiped out 40 lakhs men. Okay. How serious was it? 16:1. You follow? Or 5:1. When did it happen? Now, they don't know it's a Mahabharata. So I'm taking that peak and I'm drawing a vertical line down. It comes down to 7,500 years ago. Does that ring a bell? Okay, but one more question. Because this could have happened in America. And America did not have a Mahabharata war. So the one question we must ask, what is the epicenter? What is the main center for this genetic earthquake? Next graph, I'm going to show you the answer to that. And the answer is India. So there was a huge genetic earthquake, 16:1. It happened 7,500 years ago, genetic earthquake. Huh? And the center, the epicenter was India. How do we know that? This is the graph from the same research paper. So all you have to look at is the deviation. I don't know if you can read it. This bottom green line, the forest green that I have underlined there, that is representing South Asia, meaning India. The first deviation into this ratio, male to female deviation, okay, the 3:1 deviation to 16, the first place that it happened is this dark green line. What is it? It's India, South Asia. I just canceled that and wrote down Bharatvarsha, India, Hindustan, whatever you want to call it. First one to go down. Everyone follows the dark green line. Now notice the longest to stay that way. The green line is staying that way the longest way. And the last one to recover meaning coming back to that 3:1 kind of thing, the normal ratio, was India. Does that convince you that it is that place that is causing the main thing? Now just pay attention for 2 more minutes. Huh? Very, very interesting things are happening. Remember, besides India, who was fighting in the Mahabharata war? That's why I ask you to remember the map. The countries east of India, the countries west of India. So let's do the countries east of India, the west of India, which is Middle East. Like I said, Bhagadatta came from there, Bali came from there, and so on and so forth. That is that orange color, okay? The Near East. And what do you see? After green line, that is the first one to come down. Yeah, they have been affected. What is the next country? East of India, southeast and east of India. That is that blue line. Okay. And if you look at the blue line, that is the third one to come down. Everyone sees? So where the genetic earthquake is the most strongest, that you saw the first green line. Then the other people who are fighting, you saw the effect of that. Now I'm going to ask you a question, even if you are not genetic scientist. But everyone has heard Aryan invasion theory. Yeah. Now I'm going to show you Aryan invasion theory, but in the other direction. Do you see the yellow line? Everyone sees yellow line? It has the same flavor. You know, it also showed that effect of male chromosomes bottleneck, the yellow line, and then coming up. But it's not happening 7,500 years ago. It is happening 5,000 years ago. Everyone sees that the yellow line, when it goes down, it is about 5,000 years ago. Who can tell what that line signifies? That yellow is, by the way, Europe. So what happened in India 7,500 years ago, it happened in Europe 5,000 years ago. But what is exactly happening? Who can say that? What is it? Plague. No. Yeah, Black Plague. But when did the Black Plague happen? Not 5,000 years ago. Do you know, I was giving a lecture in Maharashtra. You will love this answer. Please don't give that. Black Plague is fine, you know. Do you know what they said? When I showed the yellow line, the yellow line in the Europe 5,000 years ago, they said World War II. Okay, what is it? It is out of India migrations of Indians going all the way to Europe. This may think, oh, really? Yes, See, suppose all of us, like how many of you have your relatives in America? Relatives in America? Most of you, raise your hand. So I know, okay, majority of you have it. That's what happens. Many times when I'm giving lecture in America, and it's about Mahabharata or Ramayana or something, most of the people are Indians who come to listen to it. So if I take a picture, just like if I can take a picture now and I send it to you, and if I said this is happening at Anaadi Foundation, many people will believe that because they look like a sort of Indian faces, which is what? The Indians with our signature, we have gone to America, and therefore, if we take a picture there, it looks like people of Indians coming together. You understand? It's the same thing. Basically, that imbalance that has happened into the gene, less male variety, same female variety, the more female variety, those individuals now have gone from India to other place. They have taken their genetic signature with them. You follow? This is out of India migrations. If you afterwards in the Google, you can check that. It's called Yamanya migration. It's called Yamanya migration. Okay. They show it from the top of Iran, Caspian Sea, all the way to the Europe. But they don't know where that began. They don't connect that with the India. Do you know why? Because today, if they look at India, they say that's not India. But if you go back 7,500 years ago, Iran, Iraq, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Tibet, Myanmar, that's all India. Okay, so it's going out of India. So this is out of India migration. If you are convinced about Aryan invasion theory, this is a time to be unconvinced. If you know somebody who is convinced of Aryan invasion theory, you can take this graph. Therefore, I will send you this presentation. You can actually use it. Okay. So this is two examples I shared on the oceanography and genetics. Okay. But now I said you can easily remember by multiplication of 7,000, 14,000, 21,000. Do you like that? It's easy to remember. Mahabharata were more than 7,000 years ago. Ramayana more than 14,000 years ago. Rigveda more than 21,000 years ago. How many of you like it? Very easy to remember. Okay, you are going to like me more. Let's do the multiplication of 7,000. Okay, so what comes after 21? 28,000. So let's look at 28,000. The nakshatra system that we use today. Okay, among the Devis, any Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini? Huh? No, not your nakshatra, your name. Huh? Bharani. Bharani. Okay, so we have a Bharani here. You know, I have an evidence for a Bharani also. Okay, when Krishna killed Kamsa, there was a huge comet in the sky. Okay, huge comet. And the brightness of the comet began from a nakshatra Bharani. Bharanyadini bhinnani nanu yanti nishakaram. Okay, Ketuna Dhuma Ketostu Nakshastranam Trayodasha Bharanyadini Bhinnani Nanu Yanti Nishakaram. So there is this timestamp. There is this big comet that covered 13 nakshatras, Nakshatrani Trayodasha, and its bright spot began with the Bharani nakshatra. Do we have a Swati? I mean, we have a cow, we know that. Okay, we have a cow here. We'll talk about the Swati if we get time. But the point is the nakshatra system that anyone with a nakshatra name, just like she said, Bharanika, anyone else? No nakshatras today? Okay. We will go with the cow eventually, okay? So just like this, the nakshatra system that we use today, it was the same nakshatra system in the Mahabharata times. Same nakshatra names. Slightly, sometimes names will change. Like a Purva Bhadrapada becomes Proshta, Purva Proshtapada. Some names change, but otherwise similar. Ramayana times also the same thing. But you know what? If you go back in time, actually even the nakshatra change their position. So let's talk about the cow Swati. Our cow Swati. Then you show me afterwards, huh? Which one is Swati? I will take a picture with her. The first one, okay. So simple way, everyone understands Panchang. Understand meaning everyone knows Panchang, right? Panchanga, what do you call? Panchang? So if you know Panchang, it tells you about every day, every month, every quarter, every year, your lifetime you can use the Panchang. If you take that Panchang uses what? Position of the sun, position of the moon, and position of nakshatra. That's it. In the Panchang, there is nothing else. The planets are there, but they are not part of the Panchang. The 5 things, it's not there. Now, to this Panchanga, you add the positions of the planets. You get the timestamp for our history, like the Mahabharata, when did it happen? Ramayana, when did it happen? And I'll show you some more instances. If you add the planets. Now, nakshatra, do you know meaning of nakshatra? Sanskrit, no ksharati iti nakshatra, the one that does not move. But our Indian civilization is so old that even nakshatras move. And that is the story of Swati Nakshatra. There is another name for Nakshatra Swati. You can tell your cow, that name. It's called Nishtya. In Sanskrit, it's called Nishtya. It will come in a Taittiriya Brahmana. It will come in Apastambi Gruhya Sutra and many places. It's called Nishtya. And do you know what it means? It means a foreigner or a traveler. So that Nakshatra Swati, the star Arcturus, is a foreigner to rest of the nakshatra. So there's 27 nakshatra, but the Swati was not part of the nakshatra system. It came at some point and our sages said, yeah, we will include that. Welcome. Welcome to India. Welcome to nakshatra system. But before that, it was not part of the nakshatra system. Therefore, they remember it's a foreigner. It's a traveler. So we have those descriptions I said in Taittiriya Brahmana, in the Apastambi Gruhya Sutra, the Nishtya. And do you know why? Because in astronomy, those are our physics professors, you can go and check that afterwards. If you look at the proper motion of Swati, if you go back 60,000 years, the nakshatra Swati is no longer along the path of the sun. 60,000 years ago, nakshatra Swati was a pole star. It was a north pole star. So it was up there in the north. Like you cannot see your pole stars here, 11 degrees, right? So from there, it came all the way. Now you can see above your head. So it traveled. And something else. How many of you have read Valmiki Ramayana? So this knowledge was also there into our text. So not just the Taittiriya Brahmana, not just Guhya Sutra, even in Valmiki Ramayana, when Hanuman is ready to jump and go to Lanka in search of Sita, you can go and read this into Kishkinda Kand. Okay, when he's ready to jump, he is telling, Iva Swati, Iva Ambare. I am now going to jump from here, go towards Lanka. When you fly on an aeroplane, do you see sometime on the aeroplane, they show the path of the plane. It's never straight line, if you notice. You are going like this, right? So he says, I'm going to take a shortest path to Lanka. Iva Swati, Iva Ambare. The way Nakshatra Swati has traveled or travels in the sky, I'm going to do like this. Now, Nakshatra never travels. It's supposed to be steady. Hanuman ji is aware of the travel of Nakshatra Swati 14,000 years ago, and our sages are watching it for 60,000 plus years ago. That's why they're calling it traveler. Okay, but I'll come to that. So 28,000 years ago, before that, if you go 60,000 years ago, this was not the nakshatra system because Swati cannot be part of it. Okay, so that nakshatra system that we use today, used by Mahabharata, used by Ramayana, was formed 28,000 BC, about 30,000 years ago. After 28, what is the next one in the multiplication of 7? 35. So if you ask me, like, that's it? Mahabharata, Ramayana, are we done? Actually not. Our Itihasa texts are no more, but this is from Maitrayani Upanishad, Maitrayani Aranya. There is a reference to a Ikshwaku king named Brihadrath. Okay, Ikshwaku king named Brihadrath. And do you know what he's saying? Now, again, same, now you're becoming familiar. X-axis is the time, Y-axis is the sea level. Okay, so from there, our times, if you go backward 10, 20,000 years, what do you see? Sea level is going up. Last 20,000 years, sea level is going up. Everyone sees that there? But before that, actually, sea level was going down. Keep that in mind. So Maitrayani Upanishad, King Brihadratha is a bit concerned. Like if your water goes down, there is no water in the well, you are concerned in the summer season, something like this. He says, these are some tough times. He says the spring equinox is in the Nakshatra Magha. Everyone knows Nakshatra Magha. Okay, that's where it is. The bright pole star is shifting its position. And one more thing he says the oceans are drying up. Now, from our time, if you want to go back and find out the time of Brihadratha, first we will say, when was the spring equinox in the Magha Nakshatra? Right now, spring equinox is in the Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. 2000 years ago, it was in the Ashwini Nakshatra. Therefore, in our calendars, we use Ashwini as the first Nakshatra because that was the situation 2000 years ago. Today, it is in Uttara Bhadrapada. So, ideally, we should say Uttara Bhadrapada is our first Nakshatra. Okay. So, if we go backwards that way and find out when was the spring equinox in the Magha, we go to about 10,000 years. But if you go back 10,000 years, something doesn't match with what Brihadrata is saying. What is it? The oceans are not going down. The oceans are coming up. So it cannot be. Now the Earth's motion called the Sampata Chalan or the precession of the Earth's axis, it completes one round like this in 26,000 years. The Earth's axis, not Earth going around the sun. Earth rotates around itself. It goes around the sun. Then it does a nod like this. The Earth's axis is like this. It does like this. The Japanese, Japanese bow down. So just that one bow down takes 41,000 years. And then it also does another motion. The Earth's axis goes like this. That takes 26,000 years. This is this 26,000 years. So if it's not 10,000 years ago, we have to go back another 26,000 years. That takes us to 35,000 BCE. So now in 35,000 BCE, all the three conditions that King Brihadrata is talking match. This is, remember, P1, TT, EE, error elimination. And now we are ready for the next one. So error elimination, the time of King Brihadrata is 35,000 years. Okay. What is the next problem? You say, what happened 42,000 years ago in the multiplication of 7? Well, quickly, I don't want to take much time. So Yamuna river, these days, if you go to Prayagraj, it meets Ganga. Even in the Ramayana times, when they come there, Ram, Lakshman, they come there to cross Sita. They cross at a Prayagraj. And the Prayagraj is what? Yamuna meeting Ganga. But geology evidence, geophysics, geochemistry, hydrology tells us this only happened in the last 50,000 years. Before that, Yamuna was part of Saraswati. That's why Saraswati was big. How many of you know the river Satluj or Shatudri in the Punjab? That big, very big river, even today, that river was also part of Saraswati. That also split. I will show you. So this happened between 50,000 and 40,000 years. Before that is a 56,000. Just like a Mahabharata, something happened. I don't know what that is. So I'm speculating. In Rigveda, we have something called Dasharatnya Yuddha, Dasharatnya War. Okay. Possibly the Dasharatnya War, where men like to fight all the time. Okay. So they fought, many men died. That war lasted for many years. Or how many of you know the story of Parshuram? Okay, so he got rid of the bad miscreant Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas were not behaving the proper Kshatriya code many times. Possibly that, so we don't know what it is. So I'm just speculating. We don't know, but something happened. If you go back to 63,000 years, the brightest pole stars that were there also during the Ramayana times, they were also there during that time. And now I want to come fast. And just north of where we are, we have to go to Andhra Pradesh. How many of you have heard the place called Jwalapuram? Kurnool? Hyderabad? Kurnool you have heard. So this is from Kurnool district. If you can see the picture here, they have removed a lot of ash at the top, the white thing. But look at the cut that you see. There is a red soil. There is a red soil. And in between, there is a patch of a white soil. It's not a soil. It's an ash, actually. Everyone sees that? If you date it, it takes you back to 72,000 BC. And do you know what happened? How many of you have heard of Toba explosion? Somebody there has heard it, okay? If you have any question about Toba explosion, you ask him afterwards, okay? So Toba explosion was the biggest volcanic eruption in the last 100,000 years. It happened in Indonesia and it spewed out all the ash across the entire India, not today's India, the India of that time, okay, the bigger portion. And you can see the evidence under Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, on the land. And one example I'm showing is from Jwalapuram in Andhra Pradesh, okay. What is interesting, you also find this in, what is the place called in Tamil Nadu? Kiladi? Kirdi, okay. So here also you find a very deep evidence of human presence. Similarly, below that ash layer at Jwalapuram, you find stone tools. And above the ash layer, you also find stone tools. So there were human beings there. Now, what they were doing, and if you think stone tools meaning a backward, think again. You can, again, the slipping solution, at the bedtime, you can go and type Zoe tribe, Z-O-E, Zoe tribe in Amazon. It's a 40-minute documentary. In the last 50 years, before 50 years, they have not come in contact with the modern technology, nothing. They are using anything that is available in the nature. And if you look at the sophistication with which they live, you'll be impressed. Maybe we look backward. They're living with that kind of sophistication. So do not underestimate like a stone tools, that means they're very backward. That is what we have been taught. That's not so true. Okay. Ravana had a lot of wonderful things. Ravana had a Pushpak Viman. But when they caught Hanuman in the Ashok garden, Ashokvana, do you know how they tied his hands? Using the vines. Why? Because they were readily available there. So whatever is available gets used. The stone tools can actually do magic. So this is a quick story. I just showed you some share. 75,000 years of history of Indian history we can talk through evidence from the written evidence. Now, we didn't go into the Sangam literature or any of it. The written, we didn't go into the Siddha literature. We didn't go into that. That will, the Siddha literature will look at this and he said, oh, that's 75,000 years. That's like yesterday. Actually, so the history is there. Just we may not always have a physical evidence for it. Okay. What time it is? I'll stop here. We'll take some questions. If we have a time, I will use it. But otherwise, my presentation is over. Thank you very much again for being very patient and listening to me. Namaskar.
So what is the age between Rama and Mahabharata? What age is it?
Okay. The question is, so we'll take, just tell me when we need to stop, like few questions. 30 more minutes? Okay. So question is, what is the difference between the Rama and Lakshmana or so? As far as the Valmiki Ramayana is concerned, it's not exactly given, or if it is given, actually the difference between them is of days. Days. The different nakshatra they are born. The nakshatra is different. Literally, like Rama is born, Bhagwan Ram is born on Punarvasu nakshatra. And then the next to that is a Pushya, that is a Bharat. And then next Aslesha and all of Maga and all that. So they are born within the days. That's what Ramayana tells. But it doesn't give many more details other than the nakshatra. Any other question, objection, comment? No?
Could you take us through a case of, so this is the astronomical configuration in Mahabharata. How would you investigate it for the benefit of them?
Which one? The astronomy or in general? Astronomy. One astronomy example. Okay. So for that, let's go here. Or I can walk you through this. Let me do this. Okay. This is like a fast forwarding the movie. When sometimes the song comes, you go fast. Okay, or the fighting comes, you go fast. This is all data on different things. We can come back to this if we get time. This is Pumpuhar, by the way. Let me just share, because we are in Tamil Nadu here. We have a data for sophisticated navigation. The Western world is not aware of it. And the textbook that uses Western thing in India, they're also not aware of it. So if you ask about when did the navigation begin in the world, okay, they talk about the Norway, they talk about the Greeks, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you about the Indians. This is work of Professor Ramaswamy in Tamil Nadu, okay, not that long ago, about 5 years ago. So it's good that you invited me now. If you would have invited me more than 5 years ago, I did not have this data. That's how fast the research is changing, okay? So what you had in terms of commerce, I'll come to your question in a minute, because this is fascinating, something you can take home. How many of you knew about this? Pumpuhar data, 20,000 years? Yes? Yes, okay. Recently, yeah, it's 5-year-old, not more than that. Wonderful research. So how many of you have been to Pumpuhar? No? Now, every reason to visit, okay? So what you are seeing there, you see the vertical line. Vertical line is where the sea level is today. So that Pumpuhar is written, that is where you will go. You don't want to go to the right of that line. that vertical line, you don't want to go to the right of that line unless you are a good swimmer. Because right now there is all water. Okay. But if you go back 20,000 years ago, and you remember what happened 20,000 years ago, from then the sea levels are rising. So Professor Ramaswamy actually found the evidence using different technology, underground technology from, remote technology, that there are sophisticated port structures under the ocean, 30 kilometers inside the ocean. And different techniques that dated it, that goes back to about 20,000 years ago. I mean, they might be there before. We know they were there 20,000 years ago because they were destroyed about 20,000 years ago. So when the water levels started rising, the ocean, those ports, they went underwater. Like, I don't know if you can read it. The highlighted line is a P1, port 1, I'm calling it. That went underwater. So what did they do? Inside the land, now the ocean has come closer, they build another port. That's a P2. Fast forward the time, so water came in and the port 1 is destroyed. Fast forward to 8,000 BC, which is about 10,000 years ago. Again, there is a sudden pulse of sea level rise and the port 2 is destroyed. So what does that tell you? 20,000 plus years, Tamil Nadu, India, had a very sophisticated navigation and sophisticated ports. You follow what I'm saying? The sophistication of these ports is as good or better than the ports that you find in Greece and Rome today or 2000 years ago. So the port 2 is gone. Fast forward the time, and now we come to the Mahabharata times, 5525 BCE. Everyone follows? Between 6,000 and 4,000 is 5525 BCE. This time, the water level was so much. Remember how much was there? 3 times this. So water level was so much, not only it destroyed the port 3, but the water went like inside the land. Do you know how far? What is that place you called? Mailadurai. If you have heard Mailadurai or Mayuram or something like this. Okay, Mailadurai. So if you go today to Mailadurai, it is a landlocked place. There is no water there, meaning there is no ocean. But 5525 BC, water went gushing inside all the way to Mailadurai. Pardon my pronunciation. Okay. So the next 2000 years, that place was a port. Okay. So you see evidence of a seaport in that place where there is no sea today. Then the water started going backwards. Remember that same thing happened in Dholavira and Lothal. 2000 BC water came down. You're going to see the exactly same thing. So that's why I showed you, same time as Krishna's Dwarka. Now, so 4000, 3000 BC, it was a port. This Mailadurai was a port. But after that, you start seeing water going down backwards, and then place called Shri, that is the place that became a port. And after that, there is a place called Nangur. That also became a port. And over the last 1,000, 2,000 years, the water came down to Pumpuhar. Now, if you are doing a navigation, you have to ask the question, how deep they were going into the ocean? They were going very deep. The Indian sages, sage Agastya namely, for example, but also sage Vishwamitra and many others, they had mapped the astronomy not only of the northern hemisphere, but also of the southern hemisphere. Okay. So now everyone has a GPS system. Everyone uses that. Take a left turn, take right, like this. Okay. Before we used to remember. Okay. Remember the restaurant where we have to take a left turn. Now we just follow this. But in ancient times, what is the system? GPS system. It's astronomy. Do you know how sophisticated astronomy was? The position of the sun, the equation for the position of the sun, it's called equation of the sun in astronomy. The Indian equation was most accurate that was calibrated during the Mahabharata times, 5500 BCE. And it was so accurate that if you fast forward to the Greek times, which is what, about 2000 years ago, the Greek had their model also for the position of the sun. So if you look at it here, I'm not making it too complicated, you cannot say it. If you look at the Greek model for predicting the position of the sun and the Indian model, the Surya Siddhanta model for predicting the sun, Surya Siddhanta model is accurate 7,500 years ago. But even in the Greek times, 2000 years ago, the Indian model was twice more accurate than the Greek model. You follow? It was that precise. This is not just for the equation of the sun. How many of you understand the latitudes and the longitudes of a place? Yeah. Similarly, you have the latitudes and longitudes for the nakshatra, because you can imagine a big football and inside that a tennis ball. So tennis ball is the earth and a football is the sky that we see. Just imagine that. So that also has the latitudes and longitudes. Surya Siddhanta has measurements of the latitudes of a nakshatra, also has longitudes. The latitudes of the nakshatra that exist in Surya Siddhanta, we can show with the perfect scientific evidence. This is an article by Dr. Anil Narayanan. He's a former ISRO scientist, aeronautical engineer, my good friend, works with me together on many issues. This is a wonderful paper, you can read it. He has shown that the latitudes of the nakshatra that were measured, that are there in the Surya Siddhanta, were measured 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, and they are very, very accurate. Some of them are accurate to the second decimal place. So you start wondering, how did they measure it? It's like a 109.25, 63.85, something like this. And you can show that this different way, it's a very robust conclusion that they were measured 10,000 years ago. Nautical miles, everyone would have heard the word. The nautical miles, this is again the use of astronomy. The nautical miles, if you do in a Google, it will say at the equator, the nautical miles are 21,600. This is a gift of India to the world. How many of you knew that? Just the word nautical miles sounds English. But do you know how they decided? On the ocean, there is no reference point. If everywhere is the ocean, how do you do it? The only reference point is the sky. So they had a good panchang. And they also, what they did is they looked at the star. They knew at what point you should supposed to see that star at a certain longitudes and latitudes. But why 21,600? This is a number you will see in Surya Siddhanta. Aryabhatiya also. Because if you look at the sky with a naked eye, the smallest distance, the resolution of your naked eye is 1 arc minute. And if you take 360 degrees, multiply by 60, you get 21,600 arc minutes. So they decided what is possible and they calculated backwards. So in Aryabhatiya, in Surya Siddhanta, the celestial radius you're going to find is 3,438. I know it's getting complicated and boring. I know that. So do you know what the Western scientists, when they became aware of Surya Siddhanta, they could not understand what is this business of 3,438. So they asked the Indian astronomers, what is the unit? Because if you hear radius, immediately you want to know, is it a kilometers? Is it inches, miles? They said, what is the unit for this? And Indian astronomers said, there is no unit. Because we don't need a unit. You know why? Because we are talking of the resolution. It's based on the resolution looking at the sky. It is a number calculated backwards. And why these sign tables in Surya Siddhanta or Madhava's text or Aryabhatiya use this 3438? When the new computers came and the printers came, you might know what you see is what it prints. There is that formula, WH, whatever. It is like this. Because your naked eye resolution is 1 arc minute, you look at the sky, come down to your map and a panchang. You don't have to make any complex calculations. Immediately you know where you are in the ocean. Because you can make an observation with the naked eye. You don't even need a binocular. That is the beauty that they created, okay? So I don't mean to say that, but now just way of answering your question, these are examples. How many of you know the name Kepler, Johannes Kepler as a scientist? Okay, physics professor will of course know. And why is a big deal about Kepler, sir? What is the big deal about Kepler? What is planetary motion, but something unique about planetary motion? What did he say? The planets are not going in the circular orbits, but they go in the elliptical orbits, right? Now, what was the time of Kepler? 16th century, 17th century. What if I tell you these both graphs are from Surya Siddhanta? The graphs are not there, the description is there. One is from 5500 BC, the time of Mahabharata. The other one is from the time of Ramayana, 12,000 BC. Okay? This one is a work of Anil Narayanan, the circle there, pulsating epicycles. The other one is a work of Nilesh Oak and Rupa Bhati. We presented at Oxford University conference. Okay? This one. The these particular thing I'm simplifying, are saying that the Indians 5,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago, 14,000 years ago, they knew that the planets of the orbits of the planets, including the sun and the moon, were not circular, but they were elliptical. So Kepler may have found it independently. He did, because he did a lot of work. You can read his biography, Max Casper's biography, a very hardworking guy. But Indians had figured this out 14,000 years ago and 5,500 years ago. Indians have figured it out. We have evidence from those times. Now, that is a contribution of astronomy, how you go about doing it. How you go about doing it? It's solving a jigsaw puzzle. So when I saw this verse, I said, how do you make sense of it? You know that Atyasannataya tena grishme tivra kararave deva bhage suranam tu hemante mandatanyatha. I will not bore you. The situation that is described here is exactly opposite of what we see today. So exactly opposite means what? It's a 26,000 year cycle. So I have to go 13,000 years backward. So we went to that 13,000 years backward. Now this is from the 12th chapter of Surya Siddhanta. I said, is there anything else in the 12th chapter of Surya Siddhanta that can tell me something? We found two other references right in the 12th chapter of Surya Siddhanta. And they also take you to 12,000 BC. So it's like solving that crossword puzzle, bringing three things together. Okay. I know it's very hard to sit down together. Just like I took you the multiplication of 7 going back to like 70,000 years. You can look at the Surya Siddhanta. You can go up to 40,000 years in the past. That's Rupa Bhati, by the way, one of my co-researcher. She's an architect by profession, because I know we have architect here. She's an architect by profession. So architects can do astronomy fine. Actually, she's an amazing researcher. Okay. How many of you watch Ranveer show? The Ranveer show? Yeah. The Ranveer has already recorded her session and it will come out very soon. Do watch it. Okay. With Rupa Bhati. Now, one more thing, a last point, and we can stop and we can take, maybe if you have time, we take question. One objection that is taken against Indian civilization, Indian literature, Indian science and technology, I'm hearing that for a long time. You tell me if you hear the same thing. They say, look, when modern science discovers something, invents something, you guys say, this is already there in Rigveda, this is already there in Mahabharata, this is already there in Ramayana. Why not come up with something that you say already that modern science has not figured out yet, and let modern science do it now? Have you heard that argument? This is the answer to that argument. So Dr. Anil Narayanan that I just mentioned, the ISRO scientist, and myself, on a Surya Siddhanta, we have wrote a paper. Some people say, why do you not publish in a peer-reviewed papers? I don't publish in a peer-reviewed papers because it's a very boring, tiring, very inefficient process. Okay. So I don't do it. I have no reason to, there is no compulsion on me how many papers you publish. So I don't do it. I write books and I give talks. I talk my books, some of the books I talk, I have not written them yet. This paper basically shows, I'll give you a summary of it. Rahu and Ketu. Everyone knows Rahu and Ketu? Okay. If you don't know, you better know. Okay. Rahu and Ketu. What is Rahu and Ketu? In astronomy, it is the path of the sun, the ecliptic, and where the moon's orbit cuts the orbit of the sun, that is the Rahu. When it cuts and goes to the north, it is Rahu. When it cuts and goes to the south, it is Ketu. And what is the orbital period of Rahu? That everyone knows. 18 years. Orbital period of Rahu is 18 years. Ketu is also 18 years. Those nodes complete 18 years. So just remember the Rahu and Ketu. But just like a moon planet, the orbit of the moon cuts the orbit of the sun, the orbits of the planets also do the same thing. And what this paper is saying many things, but one thing it is saying, just listen to this carefully, and I'll stop my blabber, okay, which is this. The cutting point of the orbit of the Saturn, when it cuts the orbit of the sun, Saturn is a very slow moving planet, Shanai, the name itself, right? For a change of 1 degree, that position of the Rahu equivalent, but for Saturn, the change of 1 degree out of 360 degrees, change of 1 degree, Surya Siddhanta tells us it takes 3 lakhs years. It takes 300,000 years. Now, that is not the surprise. The surprise is how did Surya Siddhanta, our sages, figured it out? And when the modern astronomers are looking at it, they have no way of verifying this right now. But what they do agree, all the measurements given in Surya Siddhanta, it says Saturn is the slowest, then Mars, then Jupiter. That sequence they agree. This sequence is correct, but we have no way of verifying how long it takes for 1 degree change. Surya Siddhanta says it's 300,000 years. So just imagine how long they have to make an observation or use some amazing technology to figure this out. So I'll stop on this. So in a way, I answered your question on astronomy, how we use it. Guruji?
Very excellent. Why is it that we are not studying any of these students? Why is it that we are not studying in our school textbooks? For example, what is about who you are? We don't study it in this format in our school textbooks.
Why we not studying? Because we have got used to slavery for about at least 300 years. Okay, that is the answer. For example, I get good reception in India, around the world also. When I give talks, everywhere people are thrilled. But partly somebody told me in India, Nilesh, the reason they listen to you is because you are not from this field in the history. You are from chemical engineering and you lived in America for 30 plus years. So there is some respect. This guy must have some substance. Let's listen to him. Many times I joke, for example, I showed the paper by Anil Narayanan and Nilesh. It's our problem with us. It's not problem with the West. Many times the people ask me, Nilesh ji, you are doing great. I understand it. But how do you convince the Western folks? I said that I'm living in the Western world for 35 years. It has never been a problem for me to convince anyone in the West. I can convince them hands down. Because when you use science, they think it is their thing. And they listen. It is the doubting person, the Sangshay person is in India. They are to be found in India. There is no problem convincing a outside person. So this is a challenge. So I think we have to get out of it. And how do you get out of it? We have to believe in ourselves. I think our confidence was shaken for a long time. A very wrong narrative was told to us. For example, astronomy. What is the narrative? The narrative, I'm sure you would have heard this. The astronomy that is practiced in India came from Greece. Have you heard that? The professor of physics would have heard it. Came from Greece. The navigation we learned from them. Vaccination. If I ask you vaccination, immediately what name comes to your mind? Huh? Edward Jenner. Okay. Who else? Somebody gives the answer. Usually people give the first answer is a wrong answer. They give Louis Pasteur. I don't know if somebody said that, but Edward Jenner. Everyone knows Edward Jenner did this. Do you know how Edward Jenner came to know about the vaccination? You will not believe if I tell you. But I'm going to tell you anyways, whether you believe it or not. Okay. In India, the British officers who were also medical officers in the military, they observed the method of Banaras Brahmins and Vrindavan Brahmins. They used to know 4 years and now it is a time for another epidemic like smallpox. They will go in advance as a proactive thing in the West Bengal. Now, why I say West Bengal? They went everywhere. But the British guys were in the West Bengal, in Kolkata. So they have written this record. So they're talking about these Banaras Brahmins coming to Kolkata and giving a vaccination. And this is Dr. Howell. He was a military man and a doctor. He has written a account of an Indian method of vaccination. It was called invariolation and how effective it was. He wrote the papers to Royal Society of London. Do you know when? A very detailed process. Before even Edward Jenner was born. Edward Jenner was born around 1639 or something like that. Okay, I may be 1739. I may be giving a wrong date. Before that, there are many papers written. They tried even the Chinese method, a powder that did not work. Even in the Indian system, when sometimes we get the smallpox, everyone knows smallpox. You would have heard about it, the young crowd. They used to take the pus okay, the culture on a thread, and they used to store it. And even our Chikitsa Grantha, like Ayurveda Grantha, describe how it was stored. And when these guys took this Chinese method of a powder and Indian method of a thread, for whatever reason, the Chinese method of powder did not work in Europe, but the Indian method of a thread culture worked. And the way they used to do, they used to make a small cut here on the wrist, and they will put some culture there and put the poultice and pack it up. It festers for a few days, you get a fever, and then you get better. So vaccination, we think Edward Jenner. After Edward Jenner figured out the vaccination, because it comes from a cow, baka, that's a vaccination. Do you know what they did? The British officers, the British East India Company banned the Indian method of vaccination. Do you know why? To make money. Now only the Edward Jenner method of vaccination should be used. If you want to read more about it, there is a book you can check on Amazon called Shitala. Shitala is the goddess of smallpox. Shitala by Mitra Desai. Just you can type Shitala, Shitala. It's a very small book, 10,000 words. So Guruji, that is a kind of a broad answer. There are many things. We have to shed our inhibitions. We have to get confident again. Not just cocky confidence. We have to actually do the research and then bring it out and then tell the world. Okay.
Crowd here is the student crowd. So how do I go beyond my textbooks? What should I search for? What should I read for my family?
Okay. So the question Guruji is asking here is for the young crowd and not so young crowd. Is like, if you want to do this, where do you begin? My answer is, immediately you may be surprised. My answer is Bhagavad Gita. Start with Bhagavad Gita because it mentors you for the right kind of research. For example, you read some great researcher, a very famous name. He may even have a Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, whatever. And you say, Padma Vibhushan is saying something. How can I go disagree with this person? My research is basically falsifying the research work of many Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, even Bharat Ratna. Okay, it has done that. See, truth is truth. You are not disrespecting the individuals. You are simply saying whatever they did, we are standing on their shoulders. But whatever they have done, now in the light of new research, we can tell this is wrong. So therefore, to understand that, you have to go to Bhagavad Gita. Somebody may have lots of buddhi, but it may be tamasic. Adharmam dharmam itiya manyate tamasa vrita sarvartha viparitamsha buddhi sa partha tamasi. It may be lots of it, but if it's a tamasic, that person says everything 180-degree opposite. So therefore, the conclusion can be wrong. So we have to build that confidence. Bhagavad Gita will build that confidence. And then the next what you have to do is, everyone is not going to do in astronomy. Astronomy is not the only field. You can think of whatever fascinates you. Pick that. Any subject, any subject. You may think just a cow and a cow dung. There is so much work to do with the cow dung. Gomutra, there is so much to do with the gomutra. There is so much to do with the swamutra. Yeah, you know, swayam, what is it called? Like auto urine therapy, they call it. Here we have in the Sushrut Samhita, there is a Ashtamutra Varga, the urine of 8 different animals. There is a discussion of it. Now, immediately we hear a urine and we just say, ee, oo, like this. But in America, they are separating stem cells from a human urine. Do you know where they got their clue? From Sushruta Samhita. Sushruta uses a different word. I'm not recalling that word, but my good friend Abhijit Saraf tells me that word. Essentially, it's a rejuvenation, which is a stem cell, for example. And do you know where they get their urine from? From the prisons in America. They are doing it, they are separating it. This is our knowledge. This is knowledge for humanity. We should not let it go. Should we stop? Thank you. Okay. Now, if you are not asking question, not a bad thing. That means you already know everything. Or whatever I told, you did not understand. Just on a humorous note. Thank you very much.
Now I stand before you. Oh, you can Now stand before you to propose a vote of thanks. எப்போதும் இந்த நன்றி நபர்களுக்குமாக நல்லா பேசுறவங்க கூப்பிடக்கூடாது. எல்லாரும் தயாரா இருக்கும்போது 1 மணி நேரம் நன்றி சொல்லுவாங்க. அப்படி இல்லை, இந்த தலைப்பானது, இந்த சப்ஜெக்ட் ஆனது நம்மை பொறுத்தவரை மிகவும் புதியதாக இருக்கும் என்று நான் நினைக்கிறேன். பலர் இந்த சப்ஜெக்ட் இதுதான் உங்களுக்கு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் லெக்சரா இருக்கணும். பிகாஸ் சோ மச் ரிசர்ச் ஒர்க் ஹஸ் பீன் டன். இங்க எல்லாருக்கும் திருப்பாவை தெரியும். திருப்பாவை கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கேன். ஆண்டாள் எழுது. ஆண்டாள் எந்த வருஷம் இருந்தார்? அந்த ரிசர்ச் பண்ணும்போது ஆண்டாள் ஒரே ஒரு திருப்பாவை சொல்லியிருக்காங்க, வெள்ளி உறங்கி வியாழன் படைத்தற்று அப்படின்னு. சோ வெள்ளி கிரகம் உறங்கி வியாழன் கிரகம் உதிக்கிறது. அது எப்ப நடந்தது அப்படின்னு ரிசர்ச் பண்ண. அப்ப என்ன கண்டுபிடிச்சாங்க, பிசி 550 ஆர் கிறிஸ்டியன் எரா 447. இந்த 2 டைப்ல தான் நடந்திருக்கு. சோ வித் அதர் எவிடன்ஸ் இட் ஷுட் பி 447. சோ ஆண்டாள் லிவிங் 447 அப்படின்னு ஒரு கன்க்ளூஷன். அது போன்ற ரிசர்ச் பண்றதுங்கிறது ரொம்ப சாதாரண காரியம் இல்லை. இவர் தன்னோட ரிசர்ச்ல பல நூற்றாண்டுகளை தன்னுடைய ஆராய்ச்சியில படிச்சிருக்கார். ஒரு சாதாரண விஷயம் அல்ல. சோ உங்கள் சார்பாகவும் இன்றைய இந்தியர்கள் சார்பாகவும் இவருக்கு இவ்வளவு பெரிய ரிசர்ச்ச பண்ணினதுக்கு இவருக்கு என்னுடைய நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் முதல்ல. So we convey our thanks to Mr. Nilesh for having done this research from the minds of young Indians here. Otherwise, we would have lost many things. We would not have come across all these things. With one line, I am closing my this thing. About 5,000 years back, from India, people went outside. He told, I have read in Turkey, when one agreement was signed between 2 kings, you know what they have written? நம்ம ஊர்ல பத்திரத்தில் எழுதுவாங்க, சூரிய சந்திரால் உள்ளளவும் நீ இதை ஆண்டு அனுபவித்து வர வேண்டியது, இந்திரன் சாட்சியாக அப்படின்னு எழுதுவாங்க. அதுல மித்ரா வருணா சாட்சியாக இந்த ஒப்பந்தம் கையெழுத்தாகிறது டர்க்கியில ஒரு அக்ரிமெண்ட் இருக்கு. சோ இப்ப இந்தியாவில அந்த வழக்கம் போயிடுது. இப்ப எல்லாம் அந்த நான் பார்த்திருக்கேன், ஒரு 50 வருஷம் 100 வருஷத்துக்கு முந்தின சேல் டீட்ல எல்லாம் சூரிய சந்திரால் உள்ளளவும் நீ ஆண்டு அனுபவித்து வர வேண்டியது அப்படின்னு எழுதியிருக்கோம். So from here we have gone even up to the Turkey border. Up to that it was India. அதுதான் நம்ம திரும்பி அகண்ட பாரதமாக வரணும்னு நினைக்கிறோம். இப்பொழுதைய மத்திய அரசானது தன்னுடைய கல்வி கொள்கையில 20% நம்ம ஏன்ஷியன் இந்தியன் நாலேஜ் சிஸ்டத்துக்கு ஒதுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு முடிவு எடுத்திருக்காங்க. அதன்படி இங்க நாங்க நடத்துற குருகுலத்துல இந்தியன் நாலேஜ் சிஸ்டத்தை தான் பேசிஸா வச்சுட்டு பல கோர்சஸ் நடத்துறோம். சாரோட ஒரு ரிசர்ச்சும் அதே தான். இதை தொடர்ந்து கோயம்புத்தூர்ல புரூக்ஃபீல்டு பால்ல 2 நாளைக்கு செஷன் இருக்கு, 19th and 20th. பல ஸ்பீக்கர்ஸ் வராங்க. யாருக்கெல்லாம் சான்ஸ் இருக்கோ யூ கோ அண்ட் அட்டெண்ட் இட். ஸோ அனாதி ஃபவுண்டேஷன் சார்பாக இங்கு வருகை தந்து இந்த உரை நிகழ்த்துவதற்காக திரு ஓக் அவர்களுக்கும், இதை பல ஊர்களில் இருந்து வந்து இந்த ரசத்தை பருகும் வாய்ப்பு கிட்டியமைக்காக உங்களுக்கும், பொறுமையாக இருந்து கேட்டதற்காக அனைவருக்கும், ஏற்பாடு செய்த என்னுடைய நண்பர்கள் அனைவருக்கும் நன்றி கூடி விரைபெறுகிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம். நன்றி.
An elaborate thanks in Tamil.
Okay.
We have students from the Dhanapuram Varabindo school here. We also have teachers, faculty, and students from the GVG Vishalakshi College here from Udumappet. We also have from Coimbatore, from the PhD group of institutions, we have faculty and students. They've all come here eagerly to listen to you. I thank them all again and again for having come from afar today for this wonderful lecture. I hope you take back with you many more serious questions and inquire for yourself various directions. As sir has pointed out, please do look into many of the online resources that are there for us to go before us and browse them.
Thank you all. Dhanyawada. Namaste.
Many thanks.